And now today's featured speakers are Jennifer Donati, Marinella Yule, class of 2016. I should mention Jen is class of 1990, both in reunion years. Thank you. And Benj Stawski, class of 2020. So we'll start with Jen. Jen studied business and English at Bentley and has held positions in publishing, marketing and design, and research before moving to Zurich. A certified yoga instructor, amateur photographer, and dedicated traveler, Jen is fortunate that she could take her lifelong passion for travel and turn it into a business, Jen's Journeys, like many of our Bentley alumni turning their passions into businesses. Marinella studied abroad in Argentina while at Bentley, and after graduation moved to Europe to work in marketing at a small startup and taught English in Prague. From there, she explored Asia for 6 months before semi-settling in Montreal, Canada, where she started learning French. To date, she has been, and this might be outdated, we'll have to find out, been to 42 countries and 48 out of 50 states of America, including a bicycle journey from Alaska to the Washington state border. And Benji is a writer for the Points Guy, which is the leading online resource for all things points, miles, and resourceful travel experience. His coverage spans from flight and hotel reviews to deep dives into loyalty programs and credit cards, bringing news in the airline and hotel industries and much more, as we will discover. So thank you to the three of you for joining us today. As I mentioned briefly, I also have a background in the travel industry, so I'm delighted that we're covering this topic with you three experts from our own Bentley community. I do want to say that while there is a light at the end of the tunnel, we're seeing so much changing rapidly. There are still parts of the world that are deep in the midst of this troubling pandemic, and we caution everyone to review the travel regulations for their destinations and use their best judgment on how to stay safe and healthy as travel begins to boom again. So while I've provided a little bit of background on each of our experts, let's get started with learning a little bit more from each of you. And Benji, we'll start with you first. So tell us a little bit more about your role in the travel industry.
Hi, everyone. So once again, I'm a strategic travel reporter for the Points Guy. I write flight and hotel reviews so you know what to book for the most comfortable travel experience, and then guides on points and miles and credit cards so you know how to maximize your spending and actually book these trips for free. When the pandemic first hit, we sort of shifted our editorial focus and basically became the go-to site for anyone looking for COVID-related travel information. And we're still constantly updating our guides on everything from travel restrictions and requirements, and airline and hotel cleaning policies, change policies, and much more. I took a flight actually last year, pretty early in the pandemic in April. And then that's when everything was still under strict lockdown. And then started to travel again more towards the end of last year and also this year. So I've been able to see how everything has changed over time, stayed in some hotels, and yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Benji. Next, we'll go to you, Marinella.
Hi, everyone. Good to be here. So for traveling purposes, so unlike the other two, I don't actually work in the travel industry specifically. My main job is marketing. I have my own marketing business, and I also teach English still. But the past 6 months, basically since December, I've been traveling kind of nonstop, being a digital nomad. Flew from Montreal, Canada to the West. I'm currently in Idaho, but I was in California for a couple months, went through Nevada, Utah, going to Wyoming, Yellowstone this weekend, actually. So happy to talk about my personal experiences as a digital nomad and traveling kind of in the pandemic, getting out of it with the vaccine and everything like that.
Excellent. And round us out, Jen.
Hi, everybody. It's great to be here. I'm Jen Donati, and I took my passion for travel and being a bit of a nomad myself and turned it into a business. And I really owe a lot to Bentley because I approach it from a slightly different angle than a lot of people. I treat people's time, specifically their vacation time, as an asset. And I manage it that way. And a lot of that has to do with Bentley. So I have the creativity part of it, and I really love getting people immersed in the culture, but I also understand how to treat that trip as an asset and protect it and help people look short-term and long-term about their travel goals. So thank you, Bentley. And just like Benji, we had to pivot a lot. So I spent a lot of time helping people unravel their trips, which is unusual for us. That was pretty much everybody, and getting their money back for them. And we've changed a lot of things so we can have a lot of protections in place for people. And I traveled too. You can't stop any of us. When you have that bug, you go. And I couldn't send anyone or have anyone do anything if I hadn't done it myself. So I stayed at a couple of hotels in New York and showed the precautions that they were taking and filmed it. And I was invited by a new company to go to Mexico and check on a new hotel and advise what they were doing and what could be done for sustainability, because that's a big thing for me. And in a couple of weeks, I'm going to Costa Rica. I have, like I said, a passion for sustainability and for indigenous, especially women and tribes. And so there are 8 tribes in Costa Rica, and I'm hoping to get to meet at least a few of them and to report back on that.
Very cool. Costa Rica is at the top of my list, that's for sure. So I can't wait to hear more about that. All right, so now we're going to talk a little bit about your experience, Marinella, during the pandemic. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like we saw a real increase in staying local and discovering more in our own backyard. It seemed like people were buying up camping gear and renting RVs. So what are some of the trends that you've seen with camping or road tripping, and maybe some recommendations for places here in the US that are road trip worthy?
Yeah, no, 100%. Even in Canada and Montreal specifically, their REI, their camping stores were always sold out of things. So in the States is no different. I was just in last weekend. Oh goodness, Arches and Canyonland National Parks down in Utah, and Arches, the rangers were telling me that they close the national park around 10 a.m. because they just have so many people, and that's not really normal like pre-COVID. Now it is, because everyone is staying, there's not a lot of international travels. So then they reopen it up back around like 3 p.m. for example, and they're like, yeah, we actually prefer if people like come more in the evening just to spread out people coming. And I know, looking at campgrounds in Yellowstone for this coming weekend that I'm going to, it's everything sold out, even the ones outside the national park, the private campgrounds, like everything is like pretty much sold out. So yeah, for sure, everyone is staying in and seeing the beauty that is America. I mean, all our national parks are so awesome. In terms of specific places to road trip, as much as I do love New England, out west is where it's at. I mean, we have all the national parks out west: Yellowstone, Arches, Yosemite, Grand Tetons, etc. So I definitely would make your way over here. I know southern Utah right now is very hot, so if you like hot weather, you don't want to wait till July and August, come on over to Utah. And then specifically with California, they're opening up as well, June 15th, Governor Newsom just said. So more stuff will be available there with the beaches and everything.
And since you are a digital nomad, can you tell us a little bit more about how you manage that while you travel from place to place?
Yeah, no, time zones are definitely an issue, especially marketing. I can be flexible. I can say, no, I'm available at this time. I'm working on this time, whatever. But my English classes for sure, because the parents I mainly teach to kids, they book a specific time. So I have to be cautious of that. And I've definitely messed up once or twice, and luckily the parents have been so understanding, because I put it in my phone, and I don't realize that Google like recognizes my time zone in my calendar. So it's like, oh, okay, 9 a.m. whatever Mountain Time. But I'm like, oh no, I meant that 9 a.m. East Coast time. And so there are definitely mistakes. But that's my biggest suggestion for people who want to be digital nomads, is just the time zones. My boyfriend's actually with me, and he works a 9 to 5, and he's able to be completely remote, thankfully, for this job. But being in California, a 3-hour difference from East Coast, he had to get up at 5 to be online and stuff. But he was able to get off at 2. So then we were able to have the afternoon and like go to the San Diego Zoo and all that stuff. So yeah, no, that's pretty much it. Is just be careful of your time zones, and otherwise, nothing's different. Have good Wi-Fi. That's it.
That's awesome. All right, now, thank you. So now we're going to go to you, Benji, and Thinking about those specifically who perhaps have received their vaccine and are feeling ready to fly again, can you speak to how the airlines and hotels adapted during the pandemic and what's still sticking around?
Definitely. So airlines and hotels were fairly quick to respond to the pandemic. Right away, they introduced travel waivers, allowing you to change your bookings for free. By April last year, most airlines also started to limit capacity, blocking middle seats, enhancing cleanings between flights, requiring masks, and so forth. Airlines also began to limit in-flight food and drinks. And originally, this was done to keep people from taking their masks off in flight, but eventually, this also became a cost-cutting measure. And then around the summertime, hotels really began to introduce their own enhanced cleaning procedures. So the Hilton was the first to put seals on doors to show that they did a deep clean and no one else has accessed the room since then. And some hotels even leave rooms vacant for 1 or 2 nights between guests, which is great. And then now you're seeing even resorts in places like Mexico and Caribbean offering on-site COVID testing for travelers returning to the US. I was in Jamaica just over a week ago and had to do this. So that was very convenient. And then all these travel companies, so airlines and hotels, started extending elite statuses and loyalty perks and lowering the requirements for people to earn these statuses. So that encourages people to stay loyal to these companies and get back on the road once they're ready. So now looking at what it's like traveling nowadays again, most of the airline social distancing practices have gone back to normal. Flights are being sold to full capacity again. And so don't expect an open middle seat next to you if you fly anytime soon. In-flight food and drinks are returning. This is still a bit more limited, but again, it's more as a cost-cutting measure. Airport lounges are reopening. I was also surprised. I flew this morning. I was at an airport lounge in Miami, and the buffet was open again of self-serve. Up until now, all the food and drinks were either in little containers or there was staff serving it to you. But even the buffet is coming back. That said, some of these some changes I think will stick around. So, for example, enhanced cleanings. I do think airlines will keep cleaning their planes a bit more for a while at least, because some planes were pretty gross in my opinion before the pandemic. A lot of the airlines said that they're permanently removing change fees, but even that that was now only for like certain standard economy tickets. For a while, basic economy tickets could be changed or canceled for free, but now airlines are bringing back those restrictions. Um, so the cheapest economy tickets you book aren't necessarily flexible anymore. Um, and then, um, yeah, hotels started bringing back non-refundable rates. And really for these airlines and hotels, change fees were a big moneymaker, so they will be coming back. Um, and, and another change that I think will stick around for a little longer is airlines do and hotels need to make it easier to earn elite status. Obviously, before the pandemic, most of these elite travelers were frequent business travelers. Still, people are back on the road. There's still not much business travel. So they need to encourage other people to chase status. Yeah, because right now people are rethinking which companies they're going to be loyal to. So they need a reason to stick around with certain airlines and hotels. For the hotels, other than the enhanced cleanings, I don't think too much has changed. Like I think the room seals on doors will stick around, but like buffets, as we saw with the airport lounges, I think those will come back to hotels. Will be self-serve again, and yeah, I think vaccinated or not, the federal mask mandate will stick around for a while. I know some hotels, like Hyatt announced this morning, starting this summer, you'll be able to roam around indoors without a mask. But I think in airports, expect to wear a mask for a while. But yeah, travel is definitely coming back.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. And do you think that there's reason to believe that we'll start seeing vaccine passports required for travel?
For sure. And there already are some countries that are only welcoming back vaccinated visitors. For example, Europe is reopening this summer. You're going to need a vaccine to go there. So vaccine passports will definitely become a thing.
Here's a question for all three of you. Do you have any thoughts on traveling for those that can't be vaccinated but might be high risk? Do you have any suggestions?
Yes, this is Jen. In that case, I recommend that they try to stay, clearly domestically, and not too far away from home. And it's probably important to work with someone like Benji and myself, because we can give them, a lot of things are very fluid, and we can give them the latest updates on what's safe and what's not. Last year, as a response to everything, we got 130 of us from my company, our parent company, and we each picked 3 states that we felt we knew well, and we got together in cohorts, and we came up with everything that you would need to travel like Mariella does. Also RVing, because that's become really big, and then hotels. And each one of us is in charge of, on a kind of bi-monthly basis, going back and checking on that. And we charge people a small fee, and we work with them on that so that they can go to that area. And we put it together for them, and everything is there, down to the grocery stores that are open, that are safe, and the restaurants, because it changes so much. And it was really nice to feel like we could do something like that for people. And it was really popular. First, it was just to keep ourselves busy and keep ourselves feeling like we were in touch with something, or we were surprised how many people contacted us just for that, especially for RVs. And you have to know where the bridges are and things. We even found a company that you can hire somebody. So in the case where someone's immunocompromised, an RV is a great way to go. And if you don't feel comfortable driving the RV, we have a company that we work with that has RV drivers. They stay at an Airbnb or somewhere at night so that you have your privacy, but they set everything up for you, and they take a pledge. The other thing that people can do that are immunocompromised is we have them do a group, a circle, and everyone in your circle that you travel with kind of comes together, and we do the paperwork for them. Or you could do it on your own, and everyone signs kind of an agreement about what that travel will look like and how everybody will act and be, so that everybody is safe. And that's worked out really well too. That makes everyone feel comfortable, and everyone knows how things need to be beforehand.
Excellent. Marinella, did you have something to add?
Yeah, well, first, obviously, talk to your doctor, right? Because they know you and your medical history, by all means. But in my personal experience, just getting enough like outdoor time, like sunshine and exercise, eating healthy, drinking plenty of water, is definitely will help it for any sickness. I know for myself this past weekend, it was so hot. I drank like 20 water bottles on Saturday, and I only peed once. Sorry for the TMI, but like just shows how dehydrated I was. And my lips are still like chapped to this day. So that's just basically my big recommendation. I know it's not COVID specific, but just try to get as much sunshine as you can and drink lots of water.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think another thing that is going to become more important is like travel insurance. So you could either get an add-on or even like some credit cards. If you use that card to book your trip, you'll get some coverage, which includes like hospital visits, or if anything goes wrong, you need to go back home, you'll be covered.
Benji is absolutely right. And for domestic travel, you can use your credit cards. We look at people on an individual basis, and we make people sign a waiver if they're not going to take insurance, because we don't recommend that you travel without it. And then Benji will know this. If you travel internationally, what you need to know is a lot of times that insurance on your credit cards, or the the medical insurance that you have in the States, that only kicks in once you have how do I put this succinctly? Suppose you were to go to Italy. We had a client that went to Italy. He had a heart attack. The insurance company wouldn't pay until they heard from the Italian authorities that they were not able to take care of it. Well, it was nighttime, so that wasn't possible. So the family had to have $20,000 wired in the interim as a goodwill gesture to be held in escrow for that poor gentleman who had a heart attack. And there are 4 or 5 big US companies that do things, it's kind of like Affleck in a way, where that comes in automatically. And it's the primary insurance. So if, like, I have Cigna, if I took out a policy with Travelex, is the first thing that comes to mind. And if I take out a Travelex policy and I'm in Italy and I have a heart attack, Travelex takes care of it, and then they get the money from Cigna. I don't have to worry about that. And unless you're in the industry like Benji and I, it's not something that you would know. And I think that's an important thing that we can inform people about, because you really want to, it's not sexy, but when I go through a budget with people, one of the first things I explain to them they need to take off the top is to have insurance policy like that, especially now. It's like pipes in your house or electricity. Like, you don't see it, it's not sexy, but you don't want to not have it.
Thanks, Jen. And we're going to stick with you and ask you some questions since you take bookings from all types of clientele, I'm guessing. What are some of the trends that you're seeing? Have you seen an increase in reservations?
I have seen an increase, which is really nice. And what's interesting is it's bucket list things. So I think people have really had a chance to rethink kind of some life decisions and not put things in the future. So believe it or not, for 2022, and Benji probably knows this, there are cruises that are around the world cruises, and they're a 6-month minimum, and a room would start at maybe $100,000. Those are booked. Like, I or no one else, we cannot get anybody into an around the world cruise. They're booked. So I think a lot of people that, had maybe were a certain age or had achieved a certain amount of success and said, okay, next year I'm going to slow down and do this. They're doing that. It's the same for safaris, for Antarctica, for Iceland, and for Greece. I'm booking an Iceland trip for a family right now, and it's a multi-generational family. So the grandparents always wanted to take them, and now they're doing it. So believe it or not, those things are booking up, and the availability is, the availability is really, really low. And it started with Asian clients because they had, the pandemic went through those countries first. So they kind of came out of it first and were more in the mindset of booking. So yeah, it's really interesting, but I feel like it's a good sign.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Very promising. You mentioned the worldwide cruise. Are we seeing other cruises start to book for the end of 2021 or 2022? We had a question about.
I saw the question from Joseph. Hi, Joseph, and thank you for your question. We are seeing people book for next year because there's a lot of insecurity about this year, but there is some good news that came out this week. There is a group called ASTA, and that is kind of the travel and airline industry. And we all got together and tried to put some pressure on the government. There's a very strange law from, I believe it's 1898, and it states that if a ship wants to go to Alaska, it has to first stop in Canada. Well, Canada has a ruling that there's absolutely no cruising until 2022 at the earliest. So these ships would not be able to go to Alaska because they would have to first stop in Canada. But there's been legislation that's been passed this week, and that's going to change. And Benji might know some more about that too. I'm sure he's been watching that.
Yeah, and just to add to that, there are cruises like from Royal Caribbean and Celebrity and Norwegian that are hoping to relaunch again this summer. But what they're doing is they're starting in the Caribbean. So it's easy access for Americans. They're just not actually starting in the US.
Oh, interesting. So you have to get yourself there and then you can launch the cruise from there. Got it. Great. And then Jen, we did have some questions that were asked. Many people want to know about traveling with children who are unable to be vaccinated. You mentioned the multi-generational family. And so if you could speak to some recommendations for precautions when traveling with children.
For sure, with pleasure. Yeah, it's a really big issue, and I know we were speaking earlier. A lot of people think that if somebody gets sick, it's from the plane, but we just had a lot of documentation come through, like Benji and myself and our businesses. We get daily updates. And it's actually not from the airplane. It's actually people are getting sick, if they do get sick, which is rare, at the airport. So I want people to really, really be cautious when you're in the airport. The airports are doing a really good job in general of sanitizing. It's the people. And people get in line for TSA, like Benji and I were saying, or they'll get in line to check in and they get nervous and they're not keeping the 6 feet distance. So just kind of look around you and keep that distance yourself. I recommend, I do a 3-prong action. You can go on to Amazon. I think Walmart and Target all sell them. You can go online, and I meant to have one with me. They have really great handy wipes. So they are little wipes, individual packets. I know it's not really environmentally friendly, but because of the situation, I think it warrants it. And you can get ones that are, really strong. With little kids, I found a company has a little bear on it, and they have lavender ones, and that's what I used. And then I found a really lovely spray. Trader Joe's has it, and it is, I think, Dr. Bonner, I believe, and it's like more of a natural spray so that you'd feel comfortable having it with your kids. And if you have to use the bathroom when you're at the counter, just kind of give a quick, nobody's going to question you. Everyone's being careful. Just give a quick wipe down. And after you go through the TSA part, just, make a game out of it. The bear things are so cute, and have the kids kind of, do a little wipe down. And because they're not serving as many snacks on the airplanes and not as many things are open in the airports, check your airport, find out what in fact is open. And I really recommend bringing Ziploc bags. Bring Ziploc bags if you can, fill them with some cereal. And, if to have that in the airport, the lines are going very, very well, which is great for kids. And, if necessary, have this empty Ziploc so that you can, when you go through, if there are things that you need, you can fill those little bags with food, because they are not offering a lot of food on the airplane, and you know your kids best. The other thing that I do, even in a non-pandemic thing, I've traveled with both of my kids since they were 1 month old. I bring little things that they love, Lego and Playmobil sell like little packs, and sometimes you can get those like online if you can't find them locally. And every hour, or there'll be little things like this, little stickers. Every hour, my daughters, if they were good, would get a little tchotchke. They'd get like a doll or a sticker, and they knew, and I'd have like a little timer and show them that if they were good girls and they played on their iPad or watched something or did, what they needed to do, then they would get this thing. And I'd try to tie it into where we were going whenever possible. And that really helped my sanity. The other thing that I want to tell everybody that was a lifesaver that a frequent traveler told me when the girls were little is, even though it's a pain in the you-know-what, bring a small car seat or even just one of the ones that collapses and goes up and down, and have your child sit in that when they're in the airplane. And it's Pavlov's dogs. It's terrible, but they know that when they sit in the car, they have to be in that seat and they're going to stay. It works the same way on an airplane. It's just muscle memory or whatever, your kids will stay 50% more in that thing. And I learned the hard way. We decided one time, two small kids, no, we're not going to do it. That was not a good day. So yeah, there are lots of things that you can do. So the wipes, the spray, don't worry, no one's going to judge you. There are other people doing it. The little toys and things to keep them, at the seat so they're not running around coming into contact, and patience and humor.
I think the good news is that fanny packs are coming back. So
They're
everyone.
totally back. They're totally back.
Right,
Yep.
right. So now you have a place to store all of your things. Take them out of the closet if you have some. All right, so now we're going to get into some of our submitted questions. So to our audience, feel free to continue to submit questions in the chat and the Q&A box. We're going to start with this question since we were just talking about air travel, and perhaps we'll start with you, Benji. This person is flying and thinks the biggest challenge is getting on and off the airplane, and like we said, going through TSA with social distancing. Do you think that will change?
This is a very difficult thing. Even before the pandemic, lines were always a problem. So what some airlines try to do was adjust their boarding practices. So they boarded planes from back to front, but now some of the airlines that were doing that switched back to normal because they realized that wasn't really effective. So unfortunately, there isn't like too much you could do. I mean, if you have elite status or if you have certain credit cards, you could get priority boarding. So you could be among the first to board. Otherwise, if you really want to avoid the crowds, I would say stay behind, be among the last to board. The only downside with that is that you might need to check your carry-on bag because there won't be any overhead bin space left.
Great. And are we seeing hotels use UV air purification systems now? I don't know if Benji, Jen, or Marinella want to.
Yes, some of them are. I was just in Mexico, and I was really impressed. You had to step on a mat every time you came in. It was a few inches thick, and there was a material on it. Then there was a piece that came over like a rainbow almost, and there was a spray of sage or something that we walked through. And there were UV filters in open public areas and in our rooms. And they really followed a lot of safety protocols. And when I look at hotels for clients, that will be a question I ask. And a lot of the even the smaller boutique hotels tout the fact that they do have UV. And if that's something that's really, you feel strongly about, you can, even at local CVS's and Walgreens, I don't know the effectiveness of them, but they have wands and things that you can buy. But the hotels are taking it seriously. And I think, I'd love to hear what Benji thinks too. I think that that's something that they're going to continue with. I think that they know that it's in their own best interest, and that, the staff are used to it and probably prefer it themselves. What's your take on that, Benji?
Yeah, so I definitely think the enhanced cleanings to a certain degree will stick around. I mean, some things are gonna become costly after a while. So it might not be the full cleaning procedure that they have now, but I definitely think they will keep these enhanced cleanings. Like maybe some of the like spraying, they might not do as much. There's like electric sprayers, but they'll definitely keep cleaning more than they did before.
Great, thank you. Now, when traveling, this question is, when traveling, what proof will be required to show a person is vaccinated? So maybe you can speak about some of the proof that's already being required, or perhaps even what the EU is considering for American travelers.
I could jump in. So if a country requires you to be vaccinated, then just the vaccine card, and you could either show this at check-in, or what some airlines let you do is either on their own app, or there's another app that they tell you to download. You upload all the documents, and so when I recently went to Jamaica, they don't require you to be vaccinated, but you needed a negative COVID test. It's like 72 hours before the flight. So what I did was just took a picture of the negative test, uploaded it on the app. I got a green check mark at the airport. I just showed the app with the check mark, and I was clear to fly.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
honestly depends on each country what's going to happen. I would assume in the future it's going to look like going to Peru, for example. I had to get a yellow shot and what is it, typhoid fever. And I had to show just paperwork on that. But I know Canada, for example, Quebec specifically, because I live there, they're looking at a QR code route. So yeah, it really just depends per place.
Yeah, and it'll even vary state by state. So I was just trying to Google, I don't know why the name is escaping me, but New York is starting up with an app. And once you've been vaccinated and it's 2 weeks after, you can sign up on this app, and you'll show this, and this will allow you into some of the larger gatherings that they're hoping to have. You'll be able to go to clubs, you'll be able to go to sporting events, the garden, different arenas. And we think that a lot of other states will start to do that. And just like Marinella said, the idea of having a card, a proof of vaccination, is not new. When you travel anywhere where there's yellow fever or other things, you have to have a vaccination card for that, and it's something that you carry around with you. So it's not a new concept. I'm hoping that will become a lot more uniform and maybe electronic too. I'm going to Costa Rica in a couple of weeks, and they just asked me to send a screenshot of my vaccination card, and that's all that was required.
Yeah,
And
but
I'm gonna.
oh, go ahead, Benji.
So I was just gonna say I'm gonna drop in a link. One of my coworkers just flew to Italy this weekend on one of the first like COVID tested flights. So there you could see a firsthand report of what it's like traveling to Europe right now.
That's great. Yeah, and that's for anyone that doesn't know, Italy is allowing entrance from the US, but there are only about 6 flights that have been approved. The majority are New York to Rome or Milan, and there's an Atlanta to Rome, I think, and they are COVID free. And it's Delta and American, I believe. Benji would know better than me, but because I have someone looking into it, everyone that's on that plane, from the staff to the travelers, have all had negative tests, and those planes are allowed in Italy right now, even though the EU hasn't come up with their decision.
Marinella, were you going to say something else too?
Yeah, as Jen was saying, traveling internationally has always been kind of with the vaccines and such for the different countries. Like I said, for Peru, I had to get those different vaccinations. It's just like it has to be said, but it's going to be interesting in the next several years how it works domestically, but also when you go into Canada or another country, maybe another country you don't need a vaccine card, but different stores in that country might want to see to enter like that museum or something. So it's just going to be interesting to see how everything plays out domestically or again within another international country, to see how it works. Like I said, maybe Ontario, you don't need it, but Quebec, you're going to have a QR code. But to enter Canada in general, you don't need a vaccine card. So it just study up on where you're going to go is basically the best advice. Look at their official government website. And in cases like Canada or the United States, where we're more state province focused, look at their official website.
A follow-up question, all these places to look is going to be dizzying. So in addition to the government websites, and we'll start back with you, Marinella, are there other resources or websites that you review when you're thinking about traveling to a new destination or going to a new park or museum?
No, it's just basically the official government site. I mean, I guess if I want to go to a museum, see what's open. I forget just recently, in Salt Lake City, we wanted to go see the temple and the tabernacle and all that things. So we looked on their site and they're closed, one for renovations, but two just for COVID reasons. Now's a better time to, everything's closed, so might as well renovate your museum.
Right.
But that's pretty much it. It's more just how you are, if you're comfortable. I know our flight back to Montreal, we're actually going to Burlington and crossing by foot. That's kind of a different story. But we looked at the Vermont website to see, because before Vermont was requiring a quarantine, but now they're just requiring, hasn't Benji said in some other countries, just that proof of vaccination, not vaccinate. Well, yes, you can have the vaccination, but the negative COVID test. So that's what we're going to do and try to time it right, because we also need that to enter Canada as well. So try to fit everything in 72 hours. But no, that's pretty much it. It's just the official site, because but as someone mentioned, I think it was Jen, everything's so fast, everything's moving fast, that sometimes you might see a blog and it was written 2 weeks ago and you're like, oh, this is pretty valid, but things happen so fast. So
Maybe that's more validity to work with someone like you, Jen, right? Do you have other suggestions for places to check?
Yeah, we use a few different resources. The New York Times has an excellent site, and it goes state by state, and they update it every day. I believe that ASTA, has a site that's free to the public, and then the U.S. Centers for Disease Control have an excellent website, along with the European Centers for Disease Control, so ECDC. So the CDC and the ECDC. And I'll try to pop the links up. And we use that, and then we have an internal thing that our parent company sends us, and that's updated, believe it or not, it has to be updated every 15 to 20 minutes. Yeah.
I'm not surprised with how things are changing, even on like a state level right now. Benji, I'm sure you want to get a plug into for the resources that you have with the Points Guy.
Yeah, so basically, if you Google where can Americans travel right now, or where could vaccinated Americans travel right now, and add the points afterwards, or even just on the main page on Google, you should see our site. We're constantly updating our guides with where you could go, and then what proof you need to enter that country, and also what restrictions there are, like is what are museums open, are restaurants open, things like that.
Excellent. We got a question that I would be very curious to hear each of your opinions, and we'll start back with you, Benji. For someone looking to travel maybe later this summer or early fall, do you have a recommendation for a hidden gem that may not be as crowded as some of the other places that people are starting to book right now?
My main piece of advice, and this probably isn't really what you're looking to hear, but don't be afraid of going to those more popular areas, because, for example, a lot of the airlines are increasing their flight frequencies to Florida and Mexico. So don't necessarily be afraid to go to those places. Just think about what type of place you're booking. So even if you're going to Florida, or like Cancun, somewhere in Mexico, there are smaller hotels you could book that are a bit more secluded and private, or stay at an Airbnb. And then there are tons of activities you do. So whether it's hiking or on the beach, you should be able to find activities within those cities that are not as popular. So yeah, feel free to travel really wherever you want, in my opinion. Just book a less popular like hotel or an Airbnb.
Marinella, I see you nodding your head. What are your hidden gem recommendations, or do you have the same advice as Benji?
Yeah, I'm the same. Just don't be afraid to travel. Go where you want, because I was mentioning that Arches does close for a little bit because there's so many people and campgrounds are like booked and stuff. But for example, we left Arches like around 3 o'clock and things were starting to die, I guess, because it's like the heat of the day and people already like around 3 p.m. they're already doing other plans or they just gave up or whatever. So even timing it so it's like you don't have to get to the national park right at early, especially in summer. It's daylight for so long, so if you come at 3:30, 4 o'clock, there's going to be less people anyways. In terms of national parks, yes, Yellowstone, Yosemite are the big ones, Arches, but also Canyonland. We went there was like nobody in Canyonland, nobody. And that's right next door to Arches. There's craters of the Moon in Idaho, which is a monument, not a park, but it's still, you can have some hikes and you can see some old volcanic activity. Again, not really much people there. So there are national parks and monuments that they don't have that brand awareness like Yellowstone does. And it's in the vicinity, so you still have the beauty of the area, but definitely with the less crowds for sure.
Excellent. And Jen?
Yeah, yeah, for August, September, if you wanted to do domestic, I would think September on, the Kentucky Bourbon Trail is really fabulous. And if you're a family, there's something to do for everybody, from baseball and making baseball bats to visiting horse farms and picking fresh produce and coming back and making it, to tasting bourbons for the adults, and amazing food and barbecue, and people go and just adore it. There's something for everybody there. So that's something a little different that people really love. And if you wanted to go internationally, because it's kind of hurricane season, I would love you to really think about the maritime, Canadian maritime. And I bet Marinella could speak to that from some of her travels. Quebec at that time of year is beautiful. And there are islands all along you can go up the river, and I mean, islands with lighthouses, you can bike, you can hike. And then I would think Mexico too. The prices are excellent in Mexico. They're very friendly. And I would think like Baja Peninsula. I don't know where you are, but there are lots of direct flights from the East Coast and from Texas to that area. And it suffers a lot less from hurricane season. And there's a lot of nature there. And again, there's something for everybody.
Great, thank you. We had a question about one of the more popular destinations, the Caribbean, and specifically Grand Cayman. Are those places open now? I know, Benji, you mentioned you had just come back from Jamaica. And when do you think, the Caribbean, and maybe more specifically Grand Cayman, would be more open?
Yeah, so I'm not totally sure about the Grand Cayman off the top of my head. I know they're still closed, but for the most part, the Caribbean is open. So Jamaica, Aruba, Bahamas, the Dominican Republic. Just double check what requirements there are, because you probably will need a negative test beforehand. But these islands are open. Welcome to welcoming visitors again, and they really rely on that tourism. So they need us to come back. They're great deals. And like I mentioned earlier, a lot of the resorts are offering on-site COVID testing, because you need to get tested whenever traveling internationally, coming back to the US. So these resorts are making it super easy to get tested on-site, and yeah, making it really easy for you to come back.
Great. Go ahead, Jen.
I'm sorry, I would agree. Big caveat is St. Bart's. I have a French family. I'm trying to get into St. Bart's right now. And because it's French, it's part of the Commonwealth, the government of France is forcing them to follow the same rules, even though I think they had 10 cases over the last year, and there haven't been any cases. So right now, the only way to get in there is if you can prove that you have a family member or a relative there. So I might be able to get my French family in. That's something to think of for August. If anyone ever thought St. Bart's was kind of out of their price range, it might be possible. Yeah, I saw the thing. My clients have all their vaccines, but I have 2 properties that aren't willing to take them. And Cayman is wonderful. I used to go to Cayman every year, and if you have family, it's fabulous. There's scuba diving, there's light diving, there's a manta ray, a place where you can take a boat out to see mantas. It's flat. The cuisine is amazing. Everything from it's a British Commonwealth, so you have everything from some fish and chips to really incredible West Indian food.
Oh, you're making me hungry with all these experiences you're talking about, Jen.
Sorry, no. Yeah, they have an amazing, like they do 3 or 4 times a year. Cayman has food festivals.
Wow,
That's a great time to go.
sounds it. Question for you, Marinella. How hard has it been finding the internet connections while being a digital nomad, especially when spending time in remote areas?
Not that hard. Wi-Fi is everywhere. I mean, there's been times we're on a road trip and my boyfriend will pull over to like a Walmart or a Canadian Tire in Canada, and their Wi-Fi is so strong it just hits the parking lot. So we just like kind of pull up next to it, and I just use their Wi-Fi and do English classes there. Yeah, or I have a lot of data on my phone, and so sometimes I connect it, and actually Zoom classes don't take up a lot of data, which I found very interesting because if you do WhatsApp phone calls or Messenger phone calls, it does. But anyways, so I just kind of plug in with my data on my phone and off I go. So my students have seen a lot of me in the car. Um, but other than that, for like marketing purposes or anything, no, Wi-Fi is pretty easy. Data is pretty easy. If there is that one case you are in the middle of Alaska, which I have been, my best suggestion would be enjoy the scenery, enjoy being unplugged, because other places we're too plugged in, I think sometimes. But there really is no, I wouldn't be worried about it, the Wi-Fi connection.
Good point. If you're in the middle of Alaska, you shouldn't be looking for your Wi-Fi connection.
Just enjoy it.
Benji, do you have anything to add about making connecting to Wi-Fi while you're traveling?
No, as Marinella just said, I think it's become pretty easy to get Wi-Fi everywhere. Even most hotels now offer for free. Airlines are pushing towards offering free Wi-Fi. Right now, it's just JetBlue, but I know Delta wants to do it soon. So yeah, and even like if you have T-Mobile, you get free in-flight Wi-Fi on some planes. So it's pretty easy to stay connected.
Great, great. Well, we've had some specific questions about destinations, so you can feel free to reach out to any of our panelists, but we're going to start wrapping up. So I want to ask each of you one last question, and that is, what is the destination that you're most looking forward to going to in the near future? And we'll start with you, Jen.
I'm really excited about the trip to Costa Rica. I was invited by the government of Costa Rica, and you know, beyond just travel, whenever we travel, we have things that we love to do when we travel. And for me, it's really to get to know the culture. And I have a specific love of learning about indigenous or native people. And last year I got to go to Colombia and follow the Muisca people. And this year there are 8 different native tribes. So they're going to tell me next week which one I'm going to get to follow. So I'm really, really, really excited about that. I just feel like, you know, there's so much history in so many countries, and to be able to see that history and live it and be with the people that were there from the very beginning and see how it all moved back is just so exciting. It's an honor to be able to do it. So I'm really pumped up. I'm very excited about that.
That sounds awesome. Marinella, we'll go to you next.
I'm sorry, repeat the question. For going to a country in the future.
Yeah, what's your next trip that you're really jazzed up about?
It's hard to say. There's so many countries. I would love to go back to the Balkans. I absolutely love the Balkans. South America, though I'm learning French right now, like Spanish is my first love, so I'd love to go back to South America. It's really hard to choose just one. But I guess if I had to choose just one, it'd be going to France. That's where my boyfriend's family is from, so it'd be nice to meet them in person finally, and see everyone. So.
Excellent, thank you. I'm a Francophile, so I agree with you. Benji, what about you?
So I don't think that I'll really be able to go for a while, but I do want to go back to Asia once borders reopen. Japan and Thailand were like my last real international trips before the pandemic. So I'd love to go back there. And also have some family in Germany. So hoping to go there this summer and reconnect with them.
Excellent. Well, happy travels, everyone. Thank you again for being with us today and giving us so much information. Bethany was adding links in the chat as they were being mentioned. So if you didn't get a chance, look at the chat before we leave. And let us know if you have any questions and follow up with our panelists directly. You're welcome to do so. Thank the three of you so much for joining us and sharing your expertise.
Thank you so much. This has been so fun. And before we go, I want to make sure that I mention and don't forget, the EU has just announced that it can be as early as next week. They're going to start allowing people that are vaccinated in from certain countries, and they should decide those certain countries by Friday. So everyone send good vibes. I think we have a really great chance to be on that because we've been doing such a great job lately. But good vibes that the US is on that EU vaccination list.
All right. Well, thanks, everyone. Have a great afternoon or evening or morning, wherever you're joining from. And we'll see you again next time. Thank you.
Thank you.